If you're in a project-based service business, there's this awkwardness, right? You're trying to get leads. Leads are coming, prospects are coming in. There's leads coming in, but you can't say yes to every one of them because you have capacity limitations, right? This is a project-based business. You're running multiple projects. You can't just take out and say yes to everything. But at the same time, if you say no and you turn them away, then they go to the competition and then they stick with the competition. It's difficult to win them back. So every time you say no, you're losing maybe future opportunities. It's a problem. So I want to talk about how we can solve this from the marketing perspective. My name is Irshad, partner at Dropkick Copy. We are Olympic level direct response marketers, World Federation champions. We like working on the bottom of the funnel, on retention and things like that, but our oversight translates well to all levels of the funnel. There's some interviews in the description box below. My partner interviews some of our past clients. You can watch that later, but first, watch the rest of this video. So these project-based services, what is it? It's, architecture, engineering, consulting, right? These types of businesses. Deal management is important. Deals are constantly coming in the pipeline. Not everything can be closed. There's a qualification process, and then there's a capacity issue. But at the same time, you can't stop inviting people to have conversations with you, right? All of this is about getting people to have a kind of conversation with you, because that's where you discover the scope, whether you can serve them or not, right? So that, like I said, there's like an awkwardness involved. When you turn people away, they're going to work with your competitors, and that's fine. The trouble is that the nature of the business, this project-based demand, is that the projects are less frequent than other types of things, right? So once it's gone, it's kind of gone, and once they sit with the competitor and work with them for a long period of time, they become so familiar with them that it kind of switching out loses its appeal, especially if there's software integrations involved, right? So there's a big cost to turning people away. So, I mean, that would be the worst case scenario, is like where you have to turn them away. Best case scenario is that your marketing messaging clicks, they do book a call with you, and you do have these preliminary meetings. What you got to remember though is that just because you have one meeting doesn't mean the deal is going to go through. Right? Since it's a project, there's a lot of discussions that need to be taking place. Technical scope discussions, technical detail discussions, so many other things. And then there's like a negotiation process, and then other decision makers need to sit in on the meeting. I read an estimate, it could be anywhere from 20 to 60 hours worth of preliminary discussions before any kind of check is signed. Right? And until the check is signed, nothing is for certain. Deals can fall through. So you're marketing all the way through that point, that process, up until the contract is signed or the check is signed, right? That's something you got to remember too. So working backwards, when we're talking about marketing messaging, you got to work backwards from the meetings. And I'm going to explain what that means. All right, so nobody gets to have a meeting with you unless they're qualified, right? It just makes sense. You're not going to waste your time with the wrong person. So if you're trying to improve sales conversions on whatever your offer is, you want to look at the qualification process, because if somebody's falling through after you've had meetings, it's because you didn't qualify them, and that's a waste of time, and that person didn't convert. So how did you qualify them? You got to look back at that. I can't tell you what that is. It depends on your business, right? But it's likely got to do with project scope, timeline expectations, budget expectations and stuff. The things that hurt you is if you say yes to somebody and then the project scope changes, and that increases the time it takes for you to complete the project. It erodes your margins, all these types of things, right? So can you qualify them better is a question you got to ask, and you got to find the answer to that. Can you scale up lead qualification is a question you got to ask, and a question you got to answer. Bearing in mind that you can't just say yes to everybody because you have capacity issues. So you can also do things like lead scoring. So out of the people that do qualify, you can prioritize even those people. This qualified lead is better than that qualified lead. Things like that are going to matter for you. This lead will pay more than that lead because they have a bigger scope and appropriate timelines, you know. So that's the person you want to kind of reach out to when capacity increases, right? That type of thing. This thing I said about lead scoring, that it works well when you're also running some sort of list to keep people that you're turning away. So even if you have to turn somebody away because of capacity reasons, you can tell them, look, this project that you're working on, unfortunately, we can't serve you. We'd love to stay in touch with you though. Maybe we can put you on some sort of information diet to help you in your decision making when you're working on the project, even if it's with somebody else. That's goodwill, right? And they might appreciate that because you're an expert. So they might appreciate having a second opinion. So do that. It gives you an excuse to put people on a list, right? And it makes sense because your marketing has worked. They've got in touch with you and had a conversation with you. That means that's a lead. You've converted that person from being a prospect to lead. Your marketing has worked. If you lose them and let them go without collecting their email or phone number, that's a complete waste. If you ever get in touch with them again, your cost of acquisition has increased just for that sort of loss alone, just because of that loss alone, you know. So don't do that. Keep in touch with them somehow. Keep the conversation going. Keep them engaged, even if they're working with somebody else. Also keep in mind that your lack of capacity, your lack of ability to accept business means you could also justify premium pricing. You could say, look, we can maybe service you if you pay the premium. You can do that too, right? That it creates that opportunity. It also creates the opportunity for you to build partnerships with other people in the same line of work as you. So you can tell Steven runs a company just like yours. Hey, look, I can't serve this customer right now. You can serve them. I'll recommend them to you. Just give me a commission for the sale I've driven to you. And that type of relationship can be built, right? So, you know, it's not a lose, it's not a complete loss in the end. And you can maybe offer to sit in on the first meeting to show that you care. It's a relationship building exercise. Having a lack of capacity is an opportunity to build a relationship, actually, if you know how to use the opportunity to your favor. And it's an opportunity to charge premium. Going back to this, the meeting, this idea of the meeting and working backwards from it, what kind of marketing materials can you produce from it? Well, basically, once you're having the discussion, you'll discover obstacles to them saying yes, doubts that they had before they even kind of spoke to you, anything that prevents them from actually even booking a call. Those are the things that you need to kind of address in your marketing, because what you're trying to do is get them to have that first call, right? To even be convinced enough to sit down and have the next few meetings, because like I said, there's a lot of meetings. Nobody's going to do that lightly, right? So they're going to thoroughly research you before they even step into that time investment, time commitment, right? Your job is to then make this whole experience seem frictionless and overcome any obstacles and resolve any doubts as early as possible, so that there's little in the way of them booking the call with you and saying yes to sitting down and having the first 60-minute meeting and the next 120-minute meeting and so on and so on. You know, some of these, the preliminary meeting process sometimes lasts for weeks, and it might involve multiple people all giving up their time, a portion of their day, just to attend this. It would be a shame if the whole experience doesn't bear any fruit, right? So nobody's trying to waste any time. You as well, you're not trying to waste any time. So this speaks to qualification. Figure out all the obstacles and the doubts and stuff and address that in your marketing, so that by the time the person books the call, all of that's already covered. You just need to, it smooths the process, it makes things frictionless. The other thing I like to say is, you can work back from the price, because once they have the meeting, everything's going great, everything's going smooth, you're gonna then put the offer in front of them. This is the project you described, this is all the deliverables, This is what it's going to look like. This is the timeline. Because of that, here's the price. Boom. So when they see this thing, it needs to be at a price that makes sense to them. I don't know if you've seen this diagram called the value stick. It's an interesting diagram. It helps you understand that people have a price that they're willing to pay, and there's the price that you're willing to set it at, whatever it is you're selling, right? The difference between what they're willing to pay and the price that you set it at is the value. That's what makes it a deal. Like, that's a good deal. I was willing to pay $1,000. This guy's selling it to me for $800. That $200 difference is the value capture. I'm saving $800. I'll work with this person. That's how everybody thinks, really. So you could get into a situation where you're kind of competing with other people in the same business as you by lowering, offering more value capture to the prospect, the lead, right? You kind of don't want to do that. What you instead want to do, you want to raise what they're willing to pay. How do you raise what somebody's willing to pay? Usually they pay they're willing to pay $1,000. You want them to pay $1,200. How do you even justify that, right? This is where you have to start marketing value. How do you present value? How do you convince somebody your stuff is valuable, your service is valuable? So very simple. You want to talk about the benefits to them rather than the features of the service provided. You want to talk about the outcomes, the positive outcomes, rather than the deliverables, right? Because features and deliverables are copyable. They're interchangeable with everybody else. Everybody's more or less, everybody can more or less do the same thing, right? But where you can position yourself differently is the benefit of working with you versus somebody else, or the outcome of working with you with somebody else, things like that. So it becomes a them focused type of language rather than a me focused type of language, if that makes sense. However, talking about features and deliverables is useful too when you want to create marketing messages that establish your authority and your expertise. Why? Because when you talk about the nitty-gritty and the details of things, your level of knowledge and expertise naturally comes out. I've seen people talk about refrigerated containers that made me think refrigerated containers are like the most interesting part of shipping ever because of the way he spoke about it. And he can only speak about it that way because he has knowledge and expertise, right? That type of thing is possible. So all of that's going to inform your marketing messaging. The other thing you want to do is also establish social proof. You want to show people, other people that have worked with you, this is how it turned out. These are the testimonials. This is the case studies. This is the reviews. You see, all of that stuff, demonstrating value through that early on is going to help bring in the right type of people to call you. Remember, we talked about lead qualification. If you do all of this correctly, ideally, just in the utopian sense, the person that calls you is ready to have that long meeting with you right now. Yeah, because they're convinced this is valuable. You are an expert. I have the budget. The project deliverables make sense. The timeline makes sense. I'm ready to work now. Let's get everybody in and talk about what we're going to do right away. Right? That's the ideal scenario, right? So your marketing messaging the goal of your marketing messaging is to sort of create that situation, right? The other thing you can do, and this is a pricing tactic really, but it's a pricing tactic that helps the marketers. It informs the marketing. Let's say they're willing to pay $1,000 usually for something. You want them to pay $1,200. You can anchor it. You can anchor that $1,200. You can say, look, man, for this $1,200, this is the value you're getting. You can list you can show them the amount of value you're giving them. Make it really clear that this is valuable, and look at all the things we're giving to you for this price, $1,200, right? Then you can discount it a little bit. You can say, even though it's all this value, we're going to just drop the price a little bit for you, and you can take it right now. So you anchor it against something you anchor their perception to a high price. You anchor their perception of what you provide to the higher price, and then when you offer the discount lands better. You can do it another way. You can anchor their perception to a high price but tier it. So the $1,200 is the premium enterprise offer. The $1,000 is the standard offer. Then you get an $800 version of it, right? So the project scope, since this is a project-based business, the project scope becomes less for $800. And it's a standard project scope for $1,000. Then this full-on major platinum premium enterprise version, $1,200, right? That's called anchoring. You could also then just say, look, we'll do what you're saying for a flat fee, but we'll bundle in a couple of extras, and we'll just pay a little bit extra, that type of thing. I think that's called value stacking. So you can play with things at the point of pricing it by bundling things in and packaging it up as well, right? That's really what it is. All right, to conclude, just let's be clear that even though you're a project-based service, it doesn't mean you're limited to serving just the project need, right? You can serve on demand as well. Like for example, a graphic design studio, visual studio, whatnot. They'll be looking for big projects like for movies and video games and stuff, right? But they can also serve, create an on-demand offer, one-off sketches or something. I don't know what it is, right? Because they have the expertise. So they can serve multiple types of demand, It's just that for each type of demand you're servicing, an offer that you're creating to serve that demand, there's going to be certain types of marketing messages you want to put out there. And you want to kind of work backwards from that point where the offer is placed in front of people and the meeting is had, etc., etc. As I explained, right? That's basically it. Watch my other video where I talk about seasonal services. I'm going to have a video up on on-demand services as well as recurring services. This is a series on services and how marketing can help sell more of them. That's about it. Take it easy.